Have you ever caught a man stealing glances at you, acting differently when you're around, yet never saying a word about how he feels? It's frustrating, isn't it? That lingering uncertainty, that silent question in the back of your mind. Does he like me, or am I just imagining things? The truth is, some men struggle to express their emotions, not because they don't care, but because fear holds them back. Fear of rejection, fear of ruining a good connection, fear of vulnerability, and in that hesitation they give off signs, hidden yet undeniable signals that reveal what they can't bring themselves to say out loud. For centuries, men have been taught to be strong, confident, and assertive. Society tells them they must take the lead, make the first move, and own their feelings without hesitation. But not every man fits into this mold. Some men, especially the ones who feel deeply, find themselves trapped in a silent battle between what they want and what they're afraid to lose. They second-guess their own emotions, overanalyze every interaction, and wonder if expressing their feelings will push you away rather than draw you closer. So instead of coming forward with direct words, they rely on small, unspoken actions. The kind most people overlook. Think about it. Have you ever noticed a man who always seems to be around but never really makes a move? Someone who listens more than he speaks, who reacts in subtle but telling ways whenever another guy enters the picture. Maybe his body tenses up just a little, or his energy shifts in a way you can't quite explain. Maybe he remembers small details you don't even recall mentioning, or his eyes linger on you for just a second too long before he looks away. These are not coincidences. They are windows into a mind that wants you but hesitates to take the risk. Psychologists have long studied the way people behave when they suppress their true feelings. One of the most common patterns is avoidance mixed with proximity. He won't tell you he's interested, but he won't distance himself either. Instead, he hovers at the edges of your world, close enough to feel your presence, but not bold enough to cross the line. His actions will always seem to have an explanation. "Oh, I was just passing by," or "I thought you might need help with that." But the real reason is something he's not ready to admit. His emotions betray him before his words ever will. The most telling sign? His eyes. A man who is secretly drawn to you will watch you in moments when he thinks you won't notice. He'll steal glances, observe how you react to things, and pay attention to details about you that most others overlook. If you ever catch his gaze and he quickly looks away, that's not just shyness. It's an instinctive response to being seen before he was ready, because in that split second, everything he's trying to hide is suddenly exposed. But why does he hold back? What stops him from simply saying what he feels? The answer lies in psychology. Studies show that men who are more introspective or emotionally sensitive often struggle with the fear of rejection far more than those who are naturally extroverted. To them, the risk of expressing interest is not just about hearing no, it's about losing the safe, unspoken connection they already have with you. In their mind, saying something changes everything, and if you don't feel the same way, they believe they'll not only lose their chance but also disrupt whatever dynamic already exists between you. So they stay silent, hoping their feelings will somehow be understood without ever having to be spoken. But silence has a language of its own, and if you know how to listen, you'll start seeing the truth that's been hiding in plain sight all along. The question is, will you recognize the signs before it's too late? They say the eyes are the windows to the soul, and when it comes to hidden attraction, nothing reveals more than the way a man looks at you. Words can be calculated, actions can be disguised, but the eyes, they betray what the heart tries to conceal. If a man is too shy to say he wants you, his gaze will tell you everything he can't bring himself to admit. The challenge is recognizing the difference between a casual glance and the kind of look that speaks volumes without a single word. Have you ever felt someone watching you, only to turn and see him quickly looking away? That moment, so fleeting, so subtle, holds more meaning than you might realize. It's an instinctive reaction, a silent confession slipping through before he can stop himself. A man who is secretly drawn to you will watch you when he thinks you're not looking. He'll observe the way you laugh, how you move, the little things that make you, you. But the moment you catch him, his first instinct will be to break eye contact, to retreat before his feelings are exposed. And yet, if you pay close attention, you'll notice something fascinating. he'll look again. Maybe not immediately, maybe only for a second, but he can't help himself, because attraction, especially the kind he's trying to suppress, has a way of drawing him in whether he likes it or not. Psychologists refer to this as unconscious mirroring. When someone is emotionally invested in another person, they subconsciously mirror their behaviors, including their gaze. If you glance his way and he instinctively looks back, even if just for a moment, it's because his mind is already attuned to you. And if his pupils dilate when he looks at you, that's a physiological response to attraction, one that he has no control over. But not all eye contact is created equal. Some men, especially those who are more reserved, will struggle to maintain direct eye contact for long. It's not because they're uninterested, it's because looking at you too intensely makes them feel exposed, vulnerable. So instead they steal glances, quick stolen looks that they think go unnoticed. They'll study you when you're distracted, admiring you in moments when you're unaware. And if you ever want to test this, try something simple. Catch him looking. Hold his gaze for a second longer than usual and see what happens. If he quickly looks away, then steals another glance when he thinks the coast is clear, you have your answer. But what if he's bold enough to hold your gaze? That's an even stronger sign. When a man maintains eye contact with you, especially in a moment of silence, it means he's drawn to you on a deeper level. Eye contact that lingers just a little too long creates an emotional pull, one that words can't replicate. Studies show that prolonged eye contact between two people triggers a surge of oxytocin, the hormone responsible for bonding and attraction. In other words, the more he looks at you, the more he feels connected to you. And if he doesn't look away first, that's a silent declaration that he's not just interested, he's captivated. But the most telling moments come when he doesn't even realize he's looking. Those unconscious stares when he's lost in thought, those moments when his eyes soften while watching you speak, those are the windows into his real emotions. Because when a man is trying to hide his feelings, his body will fight against his mind. He may tell himself to stay quiet, to act normal, to keep his emotions in check, but his eyes, they will always tell the truth. So the next time you wonder if a man wants you but is too shy to say it, pay attention to his gaze, not just when he knows you're looking, but when he thinks you're not. Because in those unguarded moments, in the quiet honesty of his eyes, you'll find the answer he's too afraid to give. Have you ever noticed how a man's body seems to tell a different story than his words? When a man wants you but is too shy to say it, his body language becomes his loudest confession. It's an unspoken dialect of attraction, one that betrays him even when he's trying to hide his feelings. You might not hear the words, but if you know what to look for, his body will speak in ways he never intended. A man who is secretly drawn to you will position himself in your orbit whether he realizes it or not. It's not always obvious, not the grand, sweeping gestures you see in movies, but the subtle cues that most people overlook. He might not be brave enough to sit directly next to you, but somehow he's always within reach. When you're in a group, he naturally gravitates toward your side. When you move across the room, he finds a reason to be near you, as if some invisible force keeps pulling him closer. This is subconscious. It's not premeditated. It's his body responding to the attraction his mind refuses to voice. And then there's his posture. A man who is attracted to you will adjust the way he carries himself when you're around. He'll straighten his back, stand a little taller, subconsciously trying to appear more confident, even if inside he's anything but. This is deeply rooted in human psychology. When a man is in the presence of someone he desires, his body instinctively tries to make him more appealing, whether through better posture, squared shoulders, or even a subtle puffing of the chest. It's primal. A quiet, instinctive way of saying, "Notice me." But body language isn't just about presence, it's also about reaction. Watch how he responds when you're close. Does he fidget? Adjust his clothing? Run a hand through his hair? These small, seemingly meaningless movements are often signs of nervous energy, his body's way of releasing the tension he feels around you. A man who doesn't care won't react, but a man who's drawn to you, especially one who's too shy to say it, will give himself away through these tiny, restless gestures. And then there's touch, or more specifically, almost touch. He won't be bold enough to initiate direct physical contact, but he will find ways to close the distance. His hand might brush against yours accidentally. He might lean in just a little when you speak, closing the space between you in a way that feels natural, effortless. Proximity is one of the strongest indicators of attraction. When a man wants you, he will always position himself near you, even if he doesn't act on it. One of the most telling signs? His feet. It sounds strange, but studies show that a person's feet unconsciously point toward what they desire. If you're in a conversation and his feet are turned toward you, even if his upper body seems casual, it's a subconscious cue that his attention is locked onto you. If he's facing away, but his feet remain angled in your direction, it's another silent confession his mind hasn't caught up with yet. And then there's the microexpressions, the tiny split-second reactions that slip through before he can control them. Watch his face when you laugh. If his smile is immediate and genuine, if his expression softens in a way that seems almost involuntary, that's not just politeness. That's interest. Or better yet, catch him in an unguarded moment when he's watching you. If you notice a flicker of admiration before he quickly looks away, that's not an accident. That's attraction surfacing before he can push it back down. A man's body will always reveal what his words are too afraid to say. Even the shyest man, the most reserved and hesitant, cannot completely suppress the physical signs of wanting someone. So the next time you wonder if a man secretly desires you, don't focus on what he tells you. Focus on what his body confesses when he thinks no one is paying attention. Because in those fleeting moments, in the quiet honesty of his unconscious movements, you will find the truth he's too afraid to speak. When a man secretly wants you but is too shy to say it, his words may not always give him away, but his nervous energy will. Shyness and attraction create a storm inside him, a mix of excitement and anxiety that he struggles to contain. You'll see it in the way he hesitates before speaking, the way his voice subtly shifts when you're around, and the little seemingly insignificant habits that suddenly appear whenever you enter the room. His nervousness isn't just random. It's his body reacting to the emotions he's trying to suppress. One of the clearest signs is how his speech changes when he talks to you. With others he might speak casually, effortlessly, but with you, there's a difference. His words might come out a little rushed or slightly jumbled, like he's trying to get them out before his nerves catch up. Or he might pause too much, carefully selecting his words because he doesn't want to say the wrong thing. Some men will even lower their voice unconsciously, a natural reaction when speaking to someone they're attracted to. And then there are those who do the opposite, talking faster, almost over-explaining things as a way to fill the silence because the weight of his feelings makes him restless. Pay attention to his breathing. It might sound strange, but when someone is nervous around you, their breathing pattern changes. If he takes a deep breath before talking, exhales sharply after a conversation, or even seems to hold his breath for a second when you make eye contact, those are subtle cues that you have an effect on him. His body is preparing itself for an emotional moment, even if he's not aware of it. His hands will tell you more than his words ever will. A shy man trying to suppress his attraction often needs an outlet for his nervous energy. He might fidget with his sleeves, rub his palms together, or adjust his watch or bracelet, small repetitive actions that serve as a distraction from the intensity of being near you. He may also touch his face more often, running a hand over his chin, adjusting his hair, or even lightly rubbing the back of his neck. These actions aren't random. They're subconscious coping mechanisms that reveal his inner turmoil. He wants to seem calm, but his body betrays him. Watch what happens when you get close. Does he shift his weight from foot to foot? Does he suddenly find something to do with his hands? Maybe he adjusts his posture, stands up straighter, or even leans away slightly before subtly leaning back in. That small retreat isn't rejection, it's self-preservation. A shy man struggling with attraction often pulls back for a second, not because he doesn't want to be close, but because the intensity of the moment overwhelms him. If he does this, don't mistake it for disinterest. It's actually one of the strongest indicators that he feels something deeper. And then, of course, there's the nervous smile. Unlike a confident grin or a polite smirk, a nervous smile is layered with emotion. It's hesitant yet warm, like he's caught between wanting to express his feelings and fearing that he'll give away too much. If he smiles in a way that seems almost involuntary, like his lips curve before he even realizes it, that's his attraction slipping through before his mind can stop it. Some men, instead of displaying obvious nervousness, will try to mask it with humor. If he suddenly becomes funnier around you, cracking jokes or playfully teasing, it's often a way to deflect attention from his deeper feelings. Humor is a defense mechanism, a way to create a sense of ease in a situation that makes him feel vulnerable. A man who teases you lightly, making you laugh while sneaking in quick glances to see how you react, is revealing more than he thinks. The most telling moments happen when he doesn't even realize he's being observed. If he fidgets when you walk into the room, if his hands find his pockets, if he suddenly starts fixing his hair, adjusting his clothes, or straightening his posture, those are all reflexive responses to attraction. His body is reacting before his brain can catch up. A shy man's nervous energy is not a weakness. It's a raw, unfiltered glimpse into his emotions. He may not say the words, he may not make the move, but in the way he shifts, in the way his voice wavers, in the tiny, restless movements he makes only around you, you'll find the truth he's too hesitant to speak. Because when a man is drawn to you, no matter how much he tries to hide it, his body will always tell the story his lips cannot. There's something fascinating about the way a man looks at you when he wants you but is too shy to say it. His eyes become his greatest betrayer, revealing the emotions he tries so hard to suppress. He may think he's hiding his feelings, but the truth is, attraction has a way of slipping through even the smallest cracks of restraint. His gaze, whether intentional or not, will tell you everything you need to know. When a man is drawn to you, he will look at you more than he looks at anyone else, but here's the catch. The moment you catch him, he'll look away. It's instinctive, a knee-jerk reaction born out of fear of exposure. You'll notice it in those fleeting moments when you glance in his direction and find his eyes already on you, only for him to suddenly shift his focus elsewhere, as if he was never looking at all. This isn't coincidence, it's subconscious self-protection. He's afraid of being too obvious, afraid of revealing the depth of his feelings before he's ready. But that hesitation, that split-second withdrawal is proof that there's something he's holding back. And then there's the opposite scenario. The man who holds your gaze just a little too long. He doesn't say anything, doesn't make a move, but his eyes linger in a way that makes the air between you feel heavier. This is the kind of look that speaks volumes. The kind that makes you feel seen in a way that words could never express. It's the silent confession of a man who is captivated by you, yet too uncertain or too afraid to act on it. If you ever feel like a man's eyes are pulling you into an unspoken dialogue, trust that feeling. That intensity, that quiet depth, is attraction trying to break free. There's also the way he looks at you when you're not looking. If you're in a group and he thinks your attention is elsewhere, watch how his gaze softens when he observes you. It's not just a casual glance, it's a study. He watches how you speak, how you move, how you react to things. He takes in the little details, noticing things about you that others overlook. Maybe he watches the way you tuck your hair behind your ear, the way you laugh, or the way your expression changes when you're deep in thought. He notices because he's invested, because even in silence you have his attention. And then there are the microexpressions, those tiny, almost imperceptible shifts in his face that happen in the span of a heartbeat. Watch what happens when you smile at him. Does his face light up involuntarily? Does he smile back even if it's just a small, fleeting curve of his lips? That's attraction breaking through before he can control it. Or pay attention to how his eyes react when someone else gets too close to you. If his gaze sharpens, if his jaw tightens slightly, if there's a flicker of something unreadable in his expression, that's his emotions betraying him. He may not voice it, but for that brief moment his face tells the truth. Blinking patterns also reveal more than most people realize. When a man is attracted to someone, his blink rate naturally increases. It's a physiological response, a sign of heightened emotional and cognitive activity. So if you're talking to him and notice that his blinking speeds up slightly, that's not random. It's his body reacting to the excitement and nervous energy of being near you. One of the strongest indicators is pupil dilation. When a man looks at someone he desires, his pupils will enlarge without him even realizing it. This is an automatic reaction, controlled by the nervous system, and it's one of the most telling signs of attraction. If you notice that his pupils seem slightly bigger when he's talking to you, or that his eyes seem to shine a little more in your presence, that's science confirming what his words won't say. A man's eyes will always betray him. No matter how much he tries to keep his feelings hidden, his gaze will give him away. Whether it's in the way he sneaks glances when he thinks you won't notice, the way he holds eye contact just a little too long, or the way his entire expression shifts when you enter the room, his attraction is there, written in his stare. The question isn't whether he wants you. The question is, do you see what his eyes are desperately trying to tell you? When a man wants you but is too shy to say it, his entire body language shifts around you. He may not verbalize his feelings, but his subconscious betrays him in the way he moves, stands, and reacts to your presence. His body speaks a language of its own, a language filled with hesitation, longing, and the undeniable pull of attraction. If you know what to look for, you'll see it clearly. One of the most telling signs is his posture. When a man is interested in someone, he instinctively tries to appear more confident and appealing. Even the shyest men have this automatic response. He might straighten his back, square his shoulders, or puff out his chest slightly when you're around, even if he doesn't do it consciously. This is an age-old instinct, a way of silently signaling strength and presence. If you notice that he adjusts his stance the moment you walk into the room, that's his body reacting to your energy before his mind even registers it. But there's another side to this. Sometimes, instead of standing tall, a shy man might do the opposite. He might shrink slightly, folding his arms or keeping his hands in his pockets, as if trying to contain the intensity of his emotions. He may shift his weight from foot to foot, fidget with his sleeves, or glance downward more than usual. This isn't a sign of disinterest, it's a physical manifestation of his internal conflict. He wants to be near you, but his shyness creates a barrier that he struggles to overcome, and then there's the way he positions himself around you. If a man is drawn to you, he will naturally angle his body toward you, even without realizing it. Whether he's sitting across from you or standing in a group, his torso, feet, or even his entire frame will subtly align with yours. It's an unconscious way of closing the distance, a silent invitation that says, I want to be near you. If you're in a conversation and notice that his body is directed toward you, even if he's not directly speaking to you, that's a strong indicator that he's deeply engaged. His hands tell an equally compelling story. A shy man who harbors feelings for you will often find himself unsure of what to do with them. He might rub the back of his neck, run his fingers through his hair, or continuously adjust his watch or bracelet. These small, repetitive movements are ways of channeling nervous energy, of keeping his hands occupied so he doesn't accidentally reveal too much. And if you catch him mirroring your gestures, if he picks up his drink right after you do, crosses his legs the same way, or unconsciously mirrors your movements, this is one of the strongest nonverbal signs of connection. Mirroring is a deep psychological response, a way of subconsciously building rapport and signaling alignment with someone we're drawn to. Proximity is another key factor. A man who secretly wants you will find ways to be near you, even if he's too shy to make a direct move. He may not initiate touch, but he will hover in your space, staying just close enough to feel your presence. If you're at a social gathering, he might place himself within arm's reach, always choosing a seat near yours or finding excuses to walk past you. If he lingers when saying goodbye, hesitates before stepping away, or leans in just slightly when you speak, these are all subtle ways his body reveals his interest. And then, of course, there's touch, or the careful avoidance of it. Some shy men will go out of their way not to touch you, afraid that even the lightest brush of skin will expose too much. They will keep their hands to themselves, even in moments when casual touch would be natural. Others, however, will find ways to initiate the smallest, most fleeting forms of contact. A light touch on your arm when laughing, a brief press of fingers when handing you something, or a subtle brush of shoulders when walking past. These moments may seem insignificant, but to a man who is hesitant to express his feelings, they are monumental. When a man desires you but is too shy to say it, his body tells a story his words cannot. His posture, his hands, his proximity, his unconscious mirroring. Each movement, no matter how subtle, is a glimpse into the emotions he's trying to contain. He may not come out and say it, but his body is already speaking for him. The only question is, are you paying attention? When a man wants you but is too shy to say it, his voice becomes a window into his emotions. He may try to control his words, keep his feelings hidden beneath carefully chosen phrases, but the way he speaks to you, his tone, his pitch, the way he reacts when you speak, will reveal more than he intends. His voice, like his body, will betray him, subtly shifting depending on how deeply he feels. One of the first things to notice is the way his voice changes when he talks to you compared to how he speaks to others. When a man is interested but shy, his tone may soften when he addresses you, as if he's subconsciously lowering his defenses. His voice may have a warmth to it, a quiet gentleness that he doesn't extend to everyone else. This isn't just a coincidence, it's a sign of emotional connection. His body knows what his mind refuses to admit. He feels safe with you, drawn to you in a way that makes him instinctively adjust his tone. Then there's the opposite reaction, nervous tension creeping into his speech. His voice may crack slightly, he may stumble over his words or speak faster than usual. This happens because attraction triggers the body's fight or flight response, flooding his system with adrenaline. If he's particularly shy, this nervous energy may come through in the form of awkward pauses, over-explaining simple things, or laughing at things that aren't necessarily funny. He's trying to keep his composure, but his voice gives away the depth of his emotions. Another telling sign is how often he uses your name. When a man is drawn to someone, he naturally enjoys saying their name. It creates a sense of intimacy, a way of reinforcing the personal connection between you. Pay attention to how he addresses you. Does he say your name more than necessary? Does he linger on it slightly, as if savoring the sound? This is his subconscious trying to bridge the gap between his feelings and his words, a small but significant way of making you feel special. Equally revealing is how much he listens when you speak. A shy man who secretly wants you will not just hear your words, he will absorb them. He will remember small details, bring up things you mentioned in passing, and react in ways that show genuine engagement. His voice may change when responding to something you say, perhaps becoming softer when you share something personal, or more enthusiastic when he finds a shared interest. If you ever feel like he listens more intently to you than to anyone else, that's not your imagination. That's desire disguised as attentiveness. One of the most subtle yet powerful signs is his laughter. When a man is drawn to you, he will laugh more around you, even at things that aren't particularly funny. Laughter is a social bonding tool, and when we like someone, we instinctively use it to create a connection. His laughter may be a little too quick, a little too eager, as if he can't help but respond to you. Or, if he's the quiet type, his amusement might show in a subtle smile, a twitch at the corner of his lips, a moment where his usual guarded expression softens in response to something you said. His voice will also betray him in moments of heightened emotion. If you catch him off guard, perhaps by complimenting him, touching his hand unexpectedly, or leaning in slightly, his voice may momentarily falter. A slight hitch, a deeper inhale before speaking, or even a sudden change in pitch can all be unconscious reactions to the rush of attraction. He may try to mask it, but those tiny vocal shifts speak volumes. And then there's the silence. If a man who is usually talkative around others suddenly becomes quieter around you, that's just as revealing as any words he could say. He may be overthinking every sentence, afraid of saying the wrong thing, or simply caught up in the weight of his feelings. Silence is never just silence. It's a space filled with unspoken thoughts, a pause heavy with meaning. A man's voice carries the emotions he tries to suppress. Whether it's the softness in his tone, the nervous energy in his speech, the way he lingers on your name, or the way his laughter seems just a little too frequent when you're around. His words may not admit it, but his voice tells the truth. The question is, are you truly listening? When a man wants you but is too shy to say it, his eyes become his most revealing storytellers. They hold his emotions in ways words never could. He may try to mask his feelings, control his expressions, and keep his distance, but his eyes will always give him away. If you pay close attention, you'll see the silent confessions, the fleeting moments where his guard drops, and the unspoken longing that lingers in every glance. One of the most telling signs is prolonged eye contact, or the complete avoidance of it. When a man is drawn to you but too shy to express it, he finds himself caught between two impulses, the desire to look at you and the fear of being caught. If he maintains eye contact longer than usual, it's a strong indication of his hidden feelings. There's an intensity in the way he looks at you, as if he's trying to say something, but doesn't have the courage to speak. His gaze may be softer, lingering a little too long, as though he's memorizing every detail of your face. And when your eyes meet, he may hold your gaze for just a moment longer than necessary before looking away abruptly, as if afraid you'll see right through him. But sometimes it's the opposite. A shy man who secretly wants you may struggle to meet your eyes at all. He might glance at you when he thinks you're not looking, only to immediately look away the moment you catch him. He avoids your gaze not because he isn't interested, but because eye contact feels too intimate, too exposing. His emotions are overwhelming, and locking eyes with you makes him feel vulnerable, like he's standing on the edge of a truth he's not ready to admit. Then there are the stolen glances. These are the moments when he watches you when he thinks you won't notice. You might be focused on something else, lost in conversation, and yet, if you turn your head quickly, you'll catch him looking. His eyes will dart away instantly, as if he's been caught in a moment he wasn't supposed to have. These stolen glances reveal a deep curiosity, a quiet admiration, and an undeniable attraction he hasn't yet found the words to express. One of the most powerful indicators of attraction is what psychologists call pupil dilation. When we are captivated by someone, our pupils automatically expand, responding to the excitement and emotional intensity of the moment. If you ever notice that his pupils seem larger when he looks at you, that's not just lighting, it's biology. His body is reacting to you in ways he can't control, signaling that he finds you deeply engaging. Another subtle but revealing sign is the way his eyes follow you. If you walk into a room, does his gaze naturally find you? When you move, does his head turn just slightly to keep you in his line of sight? A man who secretly wants you will be drawn to you like a magnet, unable to resist watching you even when he's pretending not to. His eyes track your movements, subtly drawn to your presence, even when he's engaged in conversation with others. And then there are the emotional microexpressions. Those fleeting, unconscious reactions that appear for just a fraction of a second before he regains control. Maybe his eyes widen slightly when you walk in, a subconscious display of excitement. Maybe his brows raise just a little when you speak, signaling deep engagement, or perhaps when you laugh. There is a brief moment where his entire expression softens, his eyes revealing something deeper than mere friendliness. These micro-expressions are almost impossible to fake. They happen in the split second before the brain catches up and tells him to act indifferent. Sometimes his eyes will tell you everything in the moments of silence, when you're talking and he's just looking at you, not rushing to respond, not distracted, but fully present. There's something profound in that quiet attention. It's in these moments that you can almost hear what he isn't saying, feel the depth of his admiration, sense the weight of his unspoken words. His eyes are holding the truth, even if his lips never will. A man's eyes reveal the emotions he tries to suppress, whether it's the way he holds your gaze just a little too long, the stolen glances when he thinks you're not looking, or the way his entire face softens in those brief, unguarded moments. His eyes are confessing what his words won't. The question is, are you paying attention? When a man secretly wants you but is too shy to say it, his body language becomes a silent messenger of his hidden emotions. He may think he's keeping his feelings under control, but his subconscious gestures betray him in ways he doesn't even realize. His movements, posture, and the way he positions himself around you speak volumes, revealing his attraction without a single word being spoken. If you know what to look for, you'll begin to see the subtle, involuntary ways his body exposes his true feelings. One of the biggest giveaways is his orientation. A man who secretly desires you will instinctively position his body toward you, even if he isn't actively engaging in conversation. It's an unconscious act, his body naturally aligning with yours, as if drawn by an invisible force. If you're in a group, notice how his torso, feet, or shoulders always seem to point in your direction, even when he's talking to someone else. This subtle alignment signals interest and attraction, a subconscious desire to stay connected to you even when his words fail to express it. Then there's the phenomenon of mirroring. People tend to mirror the body language of those they feel connected to or attracted to. If you cross your legs, does he do the same? If you take a sip of your drink, does he unconsciously follow? Mirroring is an instinctive way of building rapport and creating a sense of harmony between two people. It's not something he's doing intentionally. It's his subconscious trying to sync with yours, as if his body is searching for a silent way to bond with you. Another sign is his nervous energy. Shy men, in particular, struggle to maintain a composed demeanor around someone they deeply admire. You might notice fidgeting, playing with his hands, adjusting his clothes, running a hand through his hair, or shifting his weight from one foot to another. These small movements stem from nervous excitement, an internal battle between wanting to impress you and fearing that he might say or do the wrong thing. If he's usually calm around others but seems slightly restless in your presence, it's a strong indicator that you affect him more than he's willing to admit. Pay attention to his hands. A man's hands can be incredibly expressive, even when his words aren't. If he touches his face while talking to you, rubs the back of his neck, or runs his fingers over his lips, these are subtle signs of nervous attraction. He may also find small excuses to touch you, brushing a piece of lint off your shoulder, lightly placing a hand on your back as you walk through a doorway, or playfully nudging your arm. These fleeting touches might seem casual, but they reveal a deep yearning for physical connection, even if he doesn't have the confidence to act on it in a more obvious way. Another powerful sign is his reaction to physical closeness. Does he lean in when you talk? When you step closer, does he stay in place rather than pulling away? A shy man who secretly wants you will crave your presence, even if he's too reserved to express it openly. He may not initiate closeness, but he won't resist it either. Instead, he'll soak in those little moments of proximity, silently savoring the fact that you're near. And, if he's particularly shy, he might even tense up slightly when you get close, not because he's uncomfortable, but because your nearness sends his heart racing in ways he can't control. Then there's the way he reacts when other men are around. Even if he's shy, his body language might shift the moment another guy enters the picture. He might straighten his posture, subtly puff out his chest, or become more engaged in the conversation, as if trying to prove his worth without being too obvious. If he suddenly seems more attentive or slightly on edge when another man talks to you, it's a clear sign that he sees you as someone valuable, someone he doesn't want to lose, even if he's struggling to claim his place. Finally, notice his facial expressions, especially his smile. A man who secretly wants you may smile differently when you're around. It's not just a polite social smile, but something deeper, something more genuine. His eyes light up, his expression softens, and there's a warmth in his smile that doesn't appear for just anyone. And if he smiles to himself after you've left, as if replaying a moment or a word you said, that's his heart revealing what his voice cannot. A shy man may not have the courage to tell you how he feels, but his body will always speak the truth. His posture, movements, nervous gestures, and instinctive need to be close to you all point in one undeniable direction. He wants you, even if he's not ready to say it. The question is, can you read the signs? When a man secretly wants you but is too shy to say it, his emotions don't simply fade into the background. They build up, intensify, and find their way out in subtle, often overlooked ways. He may never muster the courage to say it outright, but his feelings are there, woven into his actions, his choices, and the way he interacts with you. Understanding these hidden signs is not just about recognizing his attraction. It's about understanding the complexity of human emotions, the fears that hold us back, and the silent battles people fight within themselves. For many shy men, fear is the biggest obstacle. Fear of rejection, fear of misreading signals, fear of ruining a valued connection. These fears create an invisible barrier, preventing him from expressing what his heart is screaming inside. Instead of risking vulnerability, he convinces himself to stay silent, hoping that somehow you'll just know. He might rationalize his hesitance by telling himself that you deserve someone more confident, more outspoken, someone who can give you everything he secretly dreams of offering. But his silence doesn't mean he doesn't care. In fact, it often means he cares too much. This internal struggle leads to moments of contradiction, times when he pulls away just when you think he might be getting closer. One day he seems engaged, his eyes lingering on you longer, his presence undeniable. The next, he's distant, reserved, almost as if he's trying to undo the connection he just built. This push and pull isn't a lack of interest, it's his fear battling his desire. His heart wants to be close to you, but his mind warns him of the possible consequences, and so he hovers in this inswept space, too afraid to step forward yet unable to truly walk away. But the truth is, emotions always find a way out. Even the shyest of men can't suppress their feelings forever. If he's truly drawn to you, he will start showing up in ways that go beyond coincidence. He'll remember small details about you, things you don't even recall mentioning. He'll notice when you're feeling off and quietly offer support, He'll position himself in your orbit, hoping to be near you without forcing it. His loyalty will be unwavering, his care evident even in silence. And if you pay attention, you'll see how much effort he puts into making sure you're happy, even if he never directly asks for anything in return. One of the most telling signs is the way he reacts when he thinks you're slipping away. If you start showing interest in someone else, does he suddenly seem more present? Does he subtly compete for your attention without ever making it obvious? A shy man who secretly wants you won't always fight for you openly, but you'll sense a shift in his energy, a quiet urgency in his actions. He may not declare his love, but his discomfort at the thought of losing you will be undeniable. At the end of the day, recognizing these signs isn't just about decoding his emotions. It's about understanding the silent language of human connection. Some people express love through words, while others show it through presence, through consistency, through the little things that often go unnoticed. If you find yourself wondering whether he feels something for you, ask yourself this: does he make an effort even in small, quiet ways? Does he seem to care beyond casual friendship? Does he light up in your presence, even if he tries to hide it? If the answer is yes, then chances are he wants you more than he's letting on. But the bigger question is, what do you do with this knowledge? If you're waiting for him to make a move, you might be waiting a long time. Shyness doesn't disappear overnight, and fear doesn't dissolve just because feelings are strong. If you're interested in him, sometimes the best thing you can do is create a space where he feels safe to open up. A gentle nudge, a clear signal, a moment of reassurance that lets him know he won't be rejected if he steps forward. That doesn't mean chasing or forcing a confession, but sometimes a little warmth and encouragement can turn hesitation into action. And if you're not interested, then the kindest thing you can do is be clear, because uncertainty can be a quiet torment for someone too afraid to ask for what they want. Love is complex, and human emotions don't always follow a script, but one thing remains true. When someone truly wants you, even their silence speaks volumes. The signs are always there. The question is, are you willing to see them?